Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this executive member decision session. I'm Councillor Claire Douglas, and I'm the leader of the council, and I'll be starting off in the chair of this meeting today, and then I will hand over to Councillor Kent to cover the agenda items that are under her remit. So going directly to the agenda, first of all, item number 1. Item number 1 is appointment of chair. I'll be chairing to start off with. Councillor Kent, are you in agreement with that? Thank you. So Councillor Douglas as chair. Thank you, Robert. 2 apologies for absence. We have no apologies today. Both Councillor Kent and I are present as expected. Declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? No declarations of interest under agenda item number 3. Agenda item number 4 is the minutes to approve the minutes of the combined executive member decision session, which was held on the 2nd of September. And I have those minutes in front of me here. I have no reason to believe that these are not a fair reflection of the meeting as was held on the 2nd of September. So can I see those in favour of approving the minutes, please?
Just to say I wasn't there, so I can't personally vouch for it. But
yes.
Sorry. I wasn't in attendance, but likewise, I haven't been notified by Councillors Lomas or Pavlovic that there's anything that isn't accurate.
Absolutely. So we're approving those minutes then. Thank you. And I will sign them at the end of the meeting. And item number 5 is public participation. We have no speakers registered today. So we go on to item number 6, which is the Heritage Estate Programme. And we have Claire Fole here and Tanya Weston. So welcome, Tanya. Never met you before. Welcome to your first executive member decision session. And Claire, are you going to start? And then Tanya, are you going to fill in after that? Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. The report today invites you to consider initiating a heritage programme focused on the city's heritage buildings. Arguably York's greatest and enduring strength, the varied layers of built heritage date back thousands of years. Our beautiful stonework, medieval glass, snickerways and unique cobbles and York stone are as much the core fabric of the city as the communities that cherish them. It feels as if it will remain permanently intact forever, but buildings and collections present an everyday history that has national and global significance. The history of York is indeed the history of England. However, these stone buildings and unique collections are more fragile than they look. The changing and extreme climate and temperature variations have created isolated, costly maintenance liabilities. This focused programme aims to attract investment and harness the strength of community pride in York's history, together with stakeholders and specialist partners' expertise and energy, and create new opportunities with a filled and refreshed offer for residents and tourists alike that will bring more skilled jobs to the city, protect and celebrate our heritage and its rightful place in the heart of the nation's history. Tanya will provide a bit of information about the programme itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Tanya, if you switch your microphone. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Leader. As I think members will be aware, in September, Executive approved the creation of a heritage programme, and this report now seeks to initiate that programme. As part of that approval, £250,000 was approved as part of the capital programme to develop the work stream and lead to a wider strategic approach that ultimately will result in further investment, private and other public funding that will help manage successfully for the future our heritage assets, not just the councils, but the wider city's heritage assets as well. As Claire has mentioned, you'll be aware York has not just nationally but internationally significant heritage both above and below ground, including the most complete medieval city walls, York Minster, the Shambles, medieval stained glass. We have 35 conservation areas. We have well over 1,500 listed buildings. We have one of only 5 in the country's areas of archaeological importance. We also have, as I'm sure you'll be aware, with the UNESCO City of Media Arts, with a current bid to the World Heritage Site also in the wings. We also have a disproportionately high concentration of heritage and related sector jobs. We've got 3 times the national average, circa 8%, and that's 2.1 billion in GVA terms. That's gross value added. As Claire's mentioned, these assets can have significant maintenance and repair liabilities that sometimes can constrain development opportunities. And this programme will develop a strategic approach that will enable us to understand what the condition of the city's heritage assets are, what the maintenance and repair liabilities are, and will allow us to better target investment and produce a coordinated approach to that. It aligns with our council policy, so the council plan, the economic and cultural strategies, the local plan, they all recognise York's significant assets and our 2,000-year history as key strengths. This programme, in terms of specifics, we will co-design through a strategic partnership with all our partners in the city, a 10-year delivery plan. We are looking to appoint a heritage champion as well, and will enable through this partnership, this development of the programme. We will look at baselining what condition the assets are in that will allow us to target where we can best benefit the most from use our assets the best. And we're looking to work in partnership to develop artefact storage facilities fit for the 21st century, of which there is a real need in the city at the moment. In terms of outcomes, it will result in a unified voice for the city's heritage that perhaps possibly previously may have been lacking. It ought to result in an increase in education, training, employment opportunities, and the resultant economic growth through that. The increased investment in heritage will also mean that we get better sector resilience, which has been an issue in terms of not just maintenance, but staffing costs, and that resilience so we're fit for the 21st century. We're also looking at making sure that there is a mid and a long-term capital development plan for York Museums Trust. And other outcomes include the opportunity for increased engagement, community engagement through volunteering, but potentially entryways into work as well, leading to a greater sense of pride in the city and the city's heritage. And as Claire's also mentioned, having well-managed heritage and that positive coherent approach in terms of communications will result in an increase in visitor spend as well and better international recognition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Tanya. That's a fantastic introduction to that and really outlines the very high importance of this paper. And I agree with you. It's something that has been missing from the city, and it has been noted by some of our local and national partners about the need for York to bring a cohesive strategy of how we work collectively across the city with all organisations that either own or have responsibility for heritage assets of all types, whether that be buildings or collections. Or as you say, archaeological sites as well. So I am really, really glad to see this. I think this really sets the scene for us to bring in that additional investment into our city that is much needed to protect our heritage and the great pride that our city has for our history, and also making sure that it forms the basis of a really dynamic and flourishing modern city as well is really important. And I know that the support for this across our partners is really strong, and everybody is really looking forward to getting on and delivering on this. And we did approve £250,000 through the capital programme earlier this month. Was it last month? Sorry, was it? September, sorry, I lose track of when we did things. We do so many things, great things, which is fantastic. And also the commitment to recruiting and nominating a heritage champion. And I've spoken to Councillor Kilbane about that, given that he has the portfolio responsibility for heritage and culture. And he has agreed, and we would like to nominate him as the heritage champion, and somebody that will, alongside me and you as officers, speak up for the city on this subject, which government, central government and our national funding bodies have told us is so important. So I think it's a really positive step forward, and I look forward to seeing how it will develop. So on that, you might gather that I'm very supportive of this. And the recommendations are on page 15 and 16, and it says that the leader is invited to approve establishing the heritage programme, which is focused on making the most from and for York's heritage assets. And Annex A sets out the key outcomes and programme objectives in that. So I am going to approve this heritage programme, and I look forward to seeing it come into fruition. And I would like to thank Claire and Tanya and other officers who have been involved to date. It's hugely important, and it's about time. I know that we've all been thinking we should be working towards this for some time, and it's great to see it come through, and shows a real commitment from this administration to the heritage of our city. So there are, under paragraph 17, there are a number of reasons why we are going ahead with this recommendation. And then under paragraph 21 is where it says that the executive is invited to appoint a heritage champion for the council who will be responsible for taking this forward, and that is Councillor Kilbane, as I've outlined. So on that note, I thank you. Thank you for joining us today, and that agenda item is complete. So please go forward and get on and implement. Marvellous, thank you. So at this point then, I now hand the chair over to Councillor Kent, who is going to deal with items 7, 8 and 9 on the agenda. And I am going to leave the meeting at this point. So thank you everybody for attending today, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. So could I move to agenda item 7, which is decision report annual carbon emissions 24-25. And we've got Sean Gibbons, who's head of carbon reduction, to help us with this one.
Thank you, Chair. So this report covers corporate emissions associated with the Council's operational activity in the financial year 2024-25. It uses the Local Government Association's greenhouse gas accounting tool to provide standardisation across years and with other councils. Increased availability of data, particularly from leisure centres, has led to a small overall increase in reported emissions from the previous year. However, our Scope 1 emissions, which is those associated with fossil fuel usage, have reduced by 7% year on year. Gas usage for heating and hot water in council buildings continues to make the largest contribution to our overall emissions. We're continuing to progress decarbonisation plans for our highest consuming sites and are rolling out fabric improvements, heat pumps and renewable generation across the council estate. A programme of LED improvements for our street lighting and our 2 largest corporate sites at West Offices and Hazel Court were completed this year, and they're saving around £375,000 and 65 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent a year. One of the consequences of our fleet electrification programme is a small increase in the consumption of grid supplied electricity for charging from the public network. Wherever possible, vehicle operators are instructed to use council chargers, which ensures that we benefit from the green energy that we purchase. Overall, however, the fleet electrification programme has been extremely successful, with emissions falling by 9% on the previous year. As it currently stands, 76% of the council's fleet below 3.5 tonnes has now been converted to electric vehicles, and this will rise to 90% in 2026. This emissions report was subject to an independent audit earlier this year, which concluded that a sound system of governance, risk management and control exists, with an overall rating of substantial assurance. Nevertheless, a couple of recommendations were made in relation to this report. Emissions associated with biomass should be included in scope 2. That was picked up through the audit, and that's been addressed and have been included in the report as presented. Another recommendation was made to expand scope 3 emissions reporting. We're continually trying to expand our scope 3 data sets, and we have a plan in place to work with procurement colleagues and utilise the new social value policy to request greater information from our suppliers in order to allow us to expand our scope 3 reporting. So in summary, the executive member is asked to approve the annual emissions report as presented for publication.
Thank you, Sean. I mean, I'm really happy to approve this, and this is a really encouraging report. It highlights many of the actions that you've taken and the team has taken, which have really benefited York citizens and also the planet itself. So can I highlight a few of them? Because, so for example, the LED, changing the LED is saving council taxpayers 375,000 a year, and also the planet, and therefore other people across the planet from the effects of climate change by 65 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent per annum. And that's just one aspect. And so you mentioned gas is our highest emissions, and some of the projects we've completed already. I went to visit Alex Lyon's house and saw a resident there who not only loved the comfort and lower energy bills, but also said it made a substantial difference. She'd stopped taking her asthma inhaler from the switch from the old carbon, the brick storage heaters. So again, it's not just that we're doing the right thing for cost and for emissions, but there are tangible health benefits to our residents for the actions we're taking, which is so fantastic to see. And I also wanted to highlight, you have mentioned the fleet electrification. The one aspect about the public charging network being more expensive is our role here to make a plea to government to change rates. What would your wish list be for that? Because I mean, going from 0% in 2010 to nearly 90% next year of electric vehicles under 3.5 tonnes is a huge win. But clearly there are better wins to be made. Is that a national ask, or how do we impact that?
Yeah, our public network is subject to market forces. York has one of the most price competitive EV charging rates in the country, facilitated through our public charging network, which is managed by the council, but there is space for private operators within the city as well, and so it's not always possible for our vehicle operators to access the council's public charging network, but we do encourage them to do so wherever they can.
Thank you. And could I just ask a bit more about our procurement policy? So we're working through a sort of social value procurement policy. How much better is that going to be for us, not just to monitor scope 3 emissions, but also to influence them in a downwards way so that we have a sustainable supply chain across the board?
Yeah, in the past, we've had very good relationships with some of our main suppliers who've been able to provide lots of detail around embodied carbon emissions and carbon emissions associated with the goods and services that they provide the council, but that's not always been the case, and it's not always been factored into our purchasing decisions when we're entering into contracts. The new social value policy will allow us to factor that in much more, and we will start to include questions in the procurement process, which will ask potential suppliers to consider the potential emissions from the goods and services that they're delivering for the council, and also to increase the amount of data that they provide us to bolster the emissions reporting that we provide here.
Yeah, which is great to see, because that's, our direct influences or our direct impact is, I think in this report it says 1%. I've seen it variously reported between 1 and 3%, but our wider influence through supply chains is much bigger, so it's great that we're taking action on that. And can I ask a bit about our future plans? So I know that I don't know if this is the appropriate place to talk about it. We have an asset management plan in production, and we're going to address carbon directly within that for the first time. Is that right?
Yeah, the new asset management strategy will cover the period 2026 to 2030, so taking us up to our net zero ambition date. And it puts carbon emissions as one of the main objectives from the management of our corporate estate. We take a energy hierarchy approach to reducing emissions across our estate. So first of all, monitoring and managing emissions associated with our buildings, and then taking a fabric improvement approach, energy efficiency approach, switching between combustion fuels and renewable energy sources, and then finally providing renewable energy generation opportunities on all of our buildings. We have had some previous successes. You mentioned a couple of examples of heat pumps being installed, but Yearsley Pool has also had a heat pump installed. We're working with a company called Deep Green to provide free and low carbon heat as a waste product of a data centre located next to the York Community Stadium. Lots of lighting improvements across our estate, and also rolling out a large programme of new rooftop solar generation across lots of our estate as a result of funding that's coming through the Mayoral Renewable Fund and Great British Energy. So lots already happening, but lots still more to do. And the asset management strategy will really prioritise how we deliver the existing 30 plus heat decarbonisation plans that we've got for our corporate buildings.
And these are really tangible actions that we can plan and we can take, pending funding in some instances. But that's, I'm really pleased to see that, because that's, these are positive steps with which we know what we're doing and how to get there. And more broadly, in terms of heat generation in the city, can you help me with any wider plans for heat networks or other supplies of energy?
Yeah, we have worked with the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero's Heat Network Delivery Unit to consider York and the feasibility and viability of heat networks for York. And whilst we weren't part of the initial heat network zoning pilot for the HNDU, we have subsequently undertaken that work using their methodology. I think off the top of my head, there were 30 heat network zones allocated across the city, with the city centre identified as a strategic heat network zone. And that means those sites, those areas have been identified as places where a heat network would provide the lowest cost form of decarbonisation for that area. And we are very keen to progress those sites that have been identified and undertake techno-economic feasibility for a heat network at those sites. At the moment, we are agnostic as to how that heat is generated for those sites. Obviously, it would be renewable, but heat pumps, air source, ground source, water source, we're agnostic. And we're also recognising the unique opportunity across this region for geothermal as well. So we will be exploring the potential for geothermal to provide low carbon heat for the city.
Which is all really good news. So I think at this point, the recommendation is at paragraph 16, I think. Let me just go back. So I'm very happy to approve the annual emissions report for publication as per paragraph 16.1. The reason it's stated here is to monitor progress against the council's ambition to be net zero by 2030. I think it's much wider than that. I think it's not just to monitor it, it's to celebrate the benefits and celebrate the successes, which are substantial to date, because we're making good progress. And these benefits are not just for the taxpayer, the council taxpayer, because we're reducing costs. They're for air quality, they're for emissions, they're for the wider environmental benefits for nature, and for even countries outside of York who are going to suffer much more directly from the impacts of climate change. But I also think this is to show what can be done, and this is trailblazing. So I also want to highlight that this is the third year running that York received an A rating from the Carbon Disclosure Project for ambition in climate leadership, and that's largely down to yourself and your team, Sean. So congratulations on that, and thank you. I'm happy to approve that. Sorry, I should put my mic on. We move smoothly to item 8, which is continuing the theme. And let me find the official title. It's our York Emissions Inventory Report 2025. And if you could take us through that, Sean, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you, Chair. So this report covers citywide emissions for the year 2022 and 2023. We're reporting multiple years due to the formal discontinuation of the scatter tool, necessitating a slight change in methodology. We've used the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero's most recent UK local authority and regional greenhouse gas emissions data set, and that is the source data set for scatter. So the main difference is how emissions are categorised, and therefore a presentational difference in how we present this report. Whilst the loss of the scatter tool does create slightly more work for officers in compiling the data and the report, the benefit is that the DESNZ data is published in a more timely manner than scatter, and that's what's allowing us to bring 2 years of data forward this year. So taking the latest data for 2023, it shows a 16% reduction in emissions from the last reported year in 2021. Notably, emissions are now lower than in 2020, when there was a significant impact of the COVID pandemic, and we saw a significant shift, a significant reduction in emissions that year. So there are 2 decisions requested for this report, so the executive member asked to approve the York Emissions Inventory Report for publication, and also approve the adoption of the UK Local Authority and Regional Emissions Data Set as the reporting methodology for future citywide emissions inventories.
Thank you, Sean. If I could just explore that last recommendation in a bit more detail, do you see, I see the positives for moving to the, moving away from the scatter tool. Are there any downsides that you see it from abandoning that?
Yes, I think that, well, as mentioned, that the scatter tool is simplifies the data collection process for officers. So there is a little bit more work that's required. That's one of the main reasons we were using scatter. It was a free tool for local authorities that was supported and funded by DESNZ. That funding's now been withdrawn with no foreseeable continuation of scatter. So we are having to move away from that. It doesn't significantly change the data. It still allows year-on-year comparisons and comparisons with other cities, because the source data for scatter and the source data that we will be using remain the same. As I say, it's just slightly more work for officers.
But in terms of accuracy of reporting, there's no
Exactly
impact.
the same.
It's more
Purely presentational. Yeah.
Apologies for that. Thank you. And so this is around the city, and I wonder if you could help. I know we do a lot of work with city partners, and we're very fortunate in collaboration across the city with our city leaders and partners. But could you expand a bit on how we can work together as a city? The previous item on the agenda, but one, was about the collaboration on heritage, and similarly, this feels to me a similar strategic objective. What are we doing in that area?
Yeah, lots of the key strategic stakeholders for the heritage item, I think, quite similar, or we recognise them in the climate change engagement arena as well. The council do a lot of outreach around the city. We established the York Climate Commission as still an active participant in the York Climate Commission, which brings a wide number of individuals and organisations together across the city, and has held those organisations and the council accountable for progress that we are making towards our net zero ambition. And it's a really great forum for sharing our experiences and our learning, and challenging these reports and the actions that we're making that are contributing to the emissions reduction. We also engage the business community through the Green Business Forum, which is a quarterly event that we host for any businesses in York to attend. It typically takes a thematic format covering energy, waste, circular, AI, different topics each time. It's a great tool for engaging businesses. We engage residents through our newsletter and email communication, which I encourage everyone to sign up for. You can keep updated on the latest news in there. And the last City Leaders Forum also had a focus on sustainability. So key individuals and organisations from across the city came together to talk about what their organisational aspirations and ambitions were around net zero and climate change, and really helped create a picture of what we as a city would like to see and create a shared vision towards our climate change ambition by 2030. So there's lots happening. Always happy to do more engagement and hear from other city partners. So yeah.
Thank you. Yes, so I guess for anyone watching or reading the minutes of this afterwards, if you want to look up the York Climate Commission, which I'm full of praise for, it was relaunched in January last year and has been opened out to the whole city. So there are many groups which focus on different themes across the whole sustainability agenda, and you're free to join them and add your voice and add your expertise. And I encourage anyone who's interested in climate or sustainability to do that. And also to thank the new co-chairs who are doing a great job of bringing together city partners and doing the joint work that you've just mentioned. But also the Green Business Forums, I think, have been a huge success. And I know that via some of the advice that you've given out of that, there are also businesses are now being able to deliver on their own carbon reduction plans and climate action plans because of it. So again, I encourage people to look at that, look at the agendas and take part. And also get in touch if anyone is struggling or wondering what to do or wanting to know more about how to decarbonise their own assets or take environmental steps towards a cleaner, greener future. Then get in touch, because there's a wealth of knowledge and expertise and help here. Thank you, Sean. I'm really happy to approve the emissions inventory report at paragraph 12.1 and also approve the adoption of the UK local authority and regional emissions data set as the reporting methodology for future citywide emissions inventories. And thank you for all the work you've done on this and the team. Item 8, is that any other business, Robert? I don't have any other business. Has anything been called? No. In that case, thank you, everybody, and I'll call the meeting to a close. Thank you.